My mistake. Okay, we got it set up now. So, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhaktivinoda Om Ganatimiranda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. Okay, so now we will share the screen. Here we go. So, Jagannath Puri is being described here, and beginning with 376 verse, and it's described that every living entity is seen by the demigods there as having 4 arms. And in the previous verse it described how, oh my God, eating fish is equivalent to havisha. Havisha doesn't mean prasadam. It means basically the offerings in the sacrifice of like rice or something like that. So don't worry about it. Don't eat fish. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur quotes this interesting verse from the Manu Samhita, which says that if you eat fish, it's like eating all living entities. In other words, you get a really bad karma. Don't eat fish. Don't eat anything except for prasadam. Leaf, fruit, a little water, offered with love and devotion to Krishna. So, okay, Jagannath Puri is being described here. That abode which bears my name is very dear to me. Everyone who resides there is equal to me. So equal to me doesn't mean they are God, but they are of the same nature. You understand? Quality, but not quantity. Yamaraj has no jurisdiction to punish anyone of that place. I alone judge the pious and impious activities of everyone there. So in other words, Krishna has the jurisdiction to punish. I'm giving you a place to stay north of that abode of mine. So of course that's Bhubaneswara. That enchanting place awards material enjoyment and liberation. You will be renowned there as Sri Bhubaneswara, means the controller of Bhuvana. After Shankara heard that wonderful glories of Jagannath Puri, he again grabbed hold of the Lord's lotus feet and spoke. O Lord of my life, I have one request. I am always extremely proud. Therefore, it will never be good for me to live away from your association. I have a desire to reside near you. It is never good to remain in bad association. Therefore, if you consider me your servant, please give me a place to stay in your own abode. After hearing the glories of your abode from your lotus mouth, I have developed an intense desire to live there. I will serve you as a menial servant. O Lord, please give me a tiny place. I desire to live in your sacred abode. After speaking these words, Maheshwara began to cry. Because, of course, he's apologizing for attacking Krishna before, because he was defending his devotee, Kashi Raj. And Kashi got burned to ashes. So he's realized that better not attack Krishna, especially with a Sudarshan disc. The moon-faced Lord was pleased with Shiva's words. He then embraced Shiva and spoke as follows. Listen, Shiva, you are equal to my own body. Anyone who is dear to you is also dear to me. I am present wherever you are. There's no doubt about it. I am giving you a place in all of my abodes. You will be the sole maintainer of my abodes. I authorize you to do this. And of course that's called the Dikpala, a protector and maintainer. And in Braj you have Gopishwara Mahadev, that's in Vrindavan, the city of Vrindavan. And then in Radhakund, Kundeshwara Mahadev, and so many Mahadevs, Lord Shiva, manifestations everywhere in Krishna's holy abodes. You reside to your full satisfaction in the Ekam Braka Vana that I gave you. That place is most dear to me. Always reside there for my pleasure. If one of my devotees disrespects you, he simply creates disturbances for me. In this way, Shiva obtained that place. Today, even today, that place is celebrated by the name Bhuvaneshwara. Gaurachandra danced before Shiva to reveal that Shiva is most dear to Krishna. Whatever Krishna spoke in the Puranas was now directly demonstrated. Lord Gaura clapped his hands as he continuously danced and chanted, "See Shiva, Ram, Govinda." Gaurachandra personally visited Bhuvaneshwara with his devotees and worshipped Shiva. Long purport. Whoops. Those who do not follow the teachings of the Supreme Lord, who is the instructing spiritual master of all, suffer miseries because of their own faults. In that abode of Shiva, the Lord and his associates happily wandered about seeing the Shiva lingas. So devotees respect and worship Lord Shiva as a devotee of Krishna, not as God. When Sri Gaurasundar saw a temple of Shiva in a most solitary place, he became joyful. Lord Gauranga visited all the temples in that place. In this way, the Lord happily traveled all the way and eventually arrived at Kamalapura. So it says from this particular village, the flag on the top of the Jagannath temple can be seen from this village. As soon as the Lord saw the flag on top of the temple, he floated in an ocean of happiness. The Lord's loud roaring was wonderful and beyond description. His entire body began to tremble, and he was unable to move. The Lord then continued on, constantly looking at the temple and reciting verses. Now hear carefully about Lord Gaurachandra's pastime of composing and reciting half a verse. Just look at the top of the temple. There, in the form of a cowherd boy with his face resembling a fully blossomed lotus, Lord Shri Krishna is looking at me and smiling sweetly. In this way, the beauty of his face is increasing. The Lord said, just see, at the top of the temple, Shri Balagopal is looking at me and smiling. Reciting this verse again and again, the Lord helplessly fell with great force to the ground. Even Ananta cannot describe the way he forcefully fell to the ground and the way he pathetically cried that day. When the Lord and his associates looked at the chakra on top of the temple, they offered obeisances and recited that verse. In this way, the Lord exhibited ecstatic love of God while offering obeisances the entire way. That is why he is called the incarnation of love of God. No one other than Sri Caitanya has the power to display such love. Those pious persons who saw the Lord on the road said, "He is directly Lord Narayan." The devotees surrounded the Lord as they walked down the road. Everyone's eyes were filled with tears of ecstasy. The road that could be covered in 1.5 hours took them 9 hours because of the Lord's absorption in ecstatic love. As soon as Lord Gauranga arrived at Ataranala, he concealed the symptoms of his ecstatic love. Atara means 18 and Nala means canal. The Lord peacefully sat down with his associates and humbly spoke to them. "You have all done favor to me, for you have brought me to see Lord Jagannath. Now tell me whether you should go first to see Jagannath or I should go first." Mukunda said, "Then you should go first." Gauranga replied, "All right," and then departed. The Lord walked like an intoxicated lion and soon entered this is a spelling mistake, or actually a word mistake, entered within the town of Jagannath Puri. Anyone who hears about Gaurachandra's entrance into Nilachal floats in an ocean of ecstatic love. By the will of the Supreme Lord, Sarvabhauma was happily taking darshan of Lord Jagannath at that time. Just then, Gaurachandra, the life and soul of the universe, came to see Jagannath, Subhadra, and Sankarshan. That's Baladev. As soon as the Lord saw Jagannath, he roared loudly and felt an intense desire to embrace him. Being overwhelmed with ecstatic love, Vishwambara leapt into the air and tears shot from his eyes in all directions. The next moment he fell to the ground, unconscious in ecstasy. Who can understand the unfathomable characteristics of the Supreme Lord? As the ignorant guards prepared to beat the Lord, Sarvabhauma hurriedly threw himself onto the Lord's back. Wow. Sarvabhauma Mahashaya thought, no human being can ever exhibit such potency. This loud roaring, this bellowing, and this current of ecstatic love are all exhibitions of extraordinary potencies. This person appears to be Sri Krishna Caitanya. The fortunate Sarvabhauma thought in this way. Being checked by Sarvabhauma, the guards were frightened and stood at a distance. From the moment the Lord saw the form of his beloved Jagannath, he remained unconscious. It is difficult for even the Vedas to know how deeply the Lord of Vaikuntha emerged in ecstatic love. That same Lord Gaurachandra was happily sitting on the Singasana in his quadruple expansions as Jagannath and Sankarshan. The Lord himself became the worshipper and executed devotional service. Therefore, who can understand the potencies of the Supreme Lord? The Lord alone knows his own glories. This is an explanation of the Vedas and Srimad Bhagavatam. Yet the Vedas describe the pastimes that the Lord performs for the purpose of delivering the living entities. The Lord became absorbed in the mood of a Vaishnava. He lost external consciousness and floated in an ocean of ecstatic love. Sarvabhauma continued to guard the Lord, whose ecstatic trance remained unbroken. Eventually, Sarvabhauma decided to take the Lord to his house. Sarvabhauma said, "O brother guards, please pick up this jewel-like personality." Lord Jagannath's personal servants, who carry the deities to their chariots during the Panda Vijaya ceremony, then picked up the Lord and departed. Who can understand the grave characteristics of the Supreme Lord? In this way, the Lord was carried to Sarvabhauma's house. Those servants all became joyful as they carried the Lord and filled the four directions with their chanting of Hari's names. At that time, the devotees arrived at the Singadwara entrance and became filled with happiness when they saw the Lord. They all came and saw that supremely wonderful scene, which resembled ants carrying away a lump of food grains. In this way, many people caught hold of the Lord and carried him in great ecstasy. After offering their obeisances at the Singadwara, the devotees joyfully followed the Lord. All the people brought the Lord into Sarvabhauma's house, and then the door was locked from within. Sarvabhauma was pleased to see all the devotees who had come to see the Lord. After appropriately greeting the devotees, Sarvabhauma sat down and his doubts were removed. Sarvabhauma Mahashaya was most pleased. Who could be more fortunate than him? The Lord, whose glories are described in the Vedas, has now personally come to his house. When Sarvabhauma Mahashaya saw Nityananda, he humbly took dust from his lotus feet. Sarvabhauma then deputed one man to take them for darshan of Lord Jagannath. The man who was deputed to take them to see Jagannath folded his hands and appealed to them. "Maintain your composure while seeing Lord Jagannath. Don't do anything like that last Goswami has done." I cannot understand what kind of persons you are. If you remain peaceful while seeing Jagannath, then I will take you. It was by the arrangement of Providence that Jagannath remained on his Singasana after what your companion did. What more will I say? Everyone who saw him fall forcefully to the ground thought that he would not survive. These topics are beyond my understanding. Therefore, my request is that you should all control yourselves while taking darshan. On hearing his words, the devotees began to laugh. They told him, "Don't worry," and departed. They went to the temple and saw Chaturvyuha Jagannath, who is the source of all transcendental happiness, and who was accompanied by his devotees. Okay. So this is explained in the purport. Jagannath is none different from Vasudeva, one of the quadruple expansions of the Supreme Lord. Pradyumna and Aniruddha are included in him. So in other words, the quadruple expansions of the Lord Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are all contained, well, actually, Vasudeva, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha is contained in Jagannath, and then Sankarshan is there as Baladev. When the devotees saw Jagannath, they began to cry. They offered their obeisances, circumambulated the Lord, and then recited prayers. The Brahmana priests happily brought Lord Jagannath's flower garlands and offered them to the devotees. Having received the Lord's mercy in the form of his garlands, the devotees joyfully returned to Sarvabhauma's house. The Lord remained unconscious in ecstasy. He did not display even a tinge of external consciousness. Sarvabhauma was sitting at the Lord's feet, and all the devotees chanted the names of Rama and Krishna on all sides. The characteristics of Gaurachandra are inconceivable and unfathomable. He did not regain external consciousness even after 9 hours. After a while, the life and soul of the universe regained external consciousness, and the devotees began chanting the name of Hari. The Lord peacefully asked everyone, "Tell me, what happened to me today?" Nityananda Prabhu replied, "Immediately after seeing Jagannath, you fell unconscious. By providence, Sarvabhauma was present there at the time. He caught hold of you and brought you to his house. You were so overwhelmed in ecstasy that you did not regain consciousness for 9 hours. This is Sarvabhauma offering you obeisances." The Lord then hurriedly embraced Sarvabhauma. The Lord said, "Jagannath is most merciful, for he brought me to the house of Sarvabhauma. I was greatly anxious about how I would attain your association, but Krishna has easily fulfilled my desire." After speaking these words, the Lord looked at Sarvabhauma and smiled. The Lord then said, "Now hear what happened to me today. I went and saw Jagannath. When I saw Jagannath, I had an urge to grab him and embrace him to my chest. But after I went to embrace Jagannath, I don't know what happened. By providence, Sarvabhauma was there at the time, so I was saved from a great calamity. I declare that from today I will take darshan of Lord Jagannath from outside. Outside means at the Garuda Stamba. I will not enter the temple. I will see the Lord while standing next to Garuda. I was fortunate that I did not grab Jagannath today. If I had done so, I would be in trouble." Nityananda then said, "It is good that you avoided that calamity. Now it is late. Let us all go take bath." The Lord replied, "Nityananda, you should protect me. I am surrendering my body to you." The Lord enjoyed ecstatic love as he took bath thereafter. He then smiled as he sat down with his devotees. Sarvabhauma quickly brought many varieties of Mahaprasad and placed them before the Lord. After offering his obeisances to the Mahaprasad, the Lord began to eat along with his associates. The Lord said, "Give me a large portion of boiled vegetables. You can all take the curd, sweet balls, cakes, and preparations made with condensed milk." In other words, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was showing us the ideal behavior of a sannyasi. Prabhupada actually said, the Mahaprasadam is meant for the grahastas. Prabhupada also said, many stalwarts have fallen down in the name of Mahaprasadam. Because we know, if you eat too opulently, then all the senses go out of control. Bacho vegam manasa krota vegam, jiva vegam udara pashta vegam, as described by Rupa Goswami in the Upadeshamrita. After speaking in this way, the Lord began to eat the boiled vegetables in ecstatic love, and the devotees began to laugh. Sarvabhauma is an associate of the Lord birth after birth. Otherwise, who else could have such a good fortune? Sarvabhauma brought rice on a gold plate and offered it to the Lord, and the Lord ate. The ecstatic happiness that manifested while the Lord ate will be described in the future by Veda Vyas. After joyfully completing his pastime of eating, the Lord sat down in the midst of his devotees. By hearing the ecstatic pastimes of the Lord's eating at Nilachal, one attains the association of Lord Chaitanya. Anyone who hears these Antya descriptions of Lord Chaitanya's journey to Nilachal will float in the ocean of love of God. Accepting Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu as my life and soul, I, Vrindavan Das, sing the glories of their lotus feet. Thus ends this English translation of the Gaudiya Bhasha of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat Antya Khanda, Chapter 2, entitled Description of the Lord's Travel through Bhubaneswara and Other Places to Jagannath Puri. Very ecstatical. So now we finish Chapter 2. Okay. And that goes all the way to the end of chapter 2, 351. Okay. And then we'll go to chapter 3. Chapter 3 is entitled Mahaprabhu's Deliverance of Sarvabhauma, Exhibition of his Six-Armed Form and Journey to Bengal. Quite a bit. So, of course, the six-armed form is called the Sadbhuja form of the Lord. Skipping over the chapter summary, all glories to Sri Krishna Caitanya, the reservoir of all transcendental qualities, all glories to the life and soul of Nityananda Swarupa. All glories to the Lord of Vaikuntha, who is an ocean of mercy, all glories to the crest jewel of all sannyasis and friend of the poor. O brothers, hear with attention the topics of this Antya Kanda, wherein Sri Gaurachandra's pastimes are described. The topics of Sri Gauranga are the essence of all nectar. Such nectar is always desired by personalities like Brahma and Shiva. Therefore, simply by hearing topics of Sri Chaitanya, everyone except the miscreant becomes pleased. Here are the confidential topics of Lord Chaitanya described in the Antya Kanda, for by hearing these topics one will certainly attain Krishna. In this way, Sri Gaurachandra, Gaurasundara, concealed his identity while happily residing in Nilachal. Who has the power to know him if he does not reveal himself? By the arrangement of providence, the Lord one day sat down in a solitary place with Sarvabhauma. The Lord said, "Listen, Sarvabhauma Mahashaya, let me reveal my heart to you. Although I came to see Jagannath, my main purpose here was to meet you. Will Jagannath speak to me? It is you who will completely destroy my material bondage. You are fully empowered by Lord Krishna, so you are able to award one loving service to Krishna. Therefore, I take shelter of you. Do whatever you consider is beneficial for me. What rules and regulations should I follow? How should I live? Please instruct me so that I do not fall into the well of material life. Please instruct me without reservation. Know for certain that I am a soul surrendered to you." In this way, Gaurahari used various means to delude Sarvabhauma while speaking to him. Without realizing the Lord's intention, Sarvabhauma began to speak about the religious duties of living entities. Sarvabhauma said, "I appreciate everything you have said. The devotion that has awakened in you is certainly most wonderful and beyond description. You have attained Krishna's mercy, but you have done one thing that is improper. Although you are most intelligent, why did you take sannyas? Just consider, what is the use of accepting sannyas? One immediately becomes bound by the ropes of false ego. One who carries a danda considers himself a great person, does not fold his hands before anyone. A sannyasi is not afraid to accept obeisances from such a personality that the Vedas declare the dust of his feet should be respected. False ego is never good. Try to understand the words of Srimad Bhagavatam in this regard. Realizing that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has entered the body of every living entity as the Supersoul, one should offer obeisances before all, even the dogs, outcasts, cows, and asses falling flat on the ground. It's like a manina, manadena. You should offer full obeisances to all living entities, including the Brahmins, dogs, and dog-eaters. Vaishnava etiquette is to offer respects to everyone, but one who is a hypocrite has no attachment for this. The only gain in giving up one's shika and Brahmin thread is that respectable people offer one their obeisances. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is definitely denigrating the sannyasa order, and he's right in a very important respect, that when one gets a position in this world, it goes to one's head. Of course, that's the famous quote that Prabhupada gave, that if you go to Lanka, you become Ravan. So in other words, if you get a position, absolute power power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so the sannyasi dresses in saffron or with a white lungi, but in any case, gives up his shika and Brahmin thread traditionally, but Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur changed that so that we would be able to preach more. What does that mean, able to preach more, by changing the standard of sannyas? Well, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur observed other sampradayas, or even bogus groups that were being successful by having their sannyasis dressed in saffron with, the regular sannyas dhoti, and he copied them. First of all, he copied the Ramanuja Sampradaya, which is a bona fide Sampradaya, and then he also copied, I hate to say this, Vivekananda's sannyasis, who were really bogus. Sorry, don't want to offend anyone. Okay, so this is the first loss in accepting sannyas. Now hear about the other loss by which one's intelligence becomes polluted. Of course, the first loss is that your false ego becomes increased because people respect you, and you're not offering respect to others. And so the second loss is a loss by which one's intelligence becomes polluted. The constitutional duty of the living entity is to worship the Supreme Lord, but after taking sannyas, one gives up that worship and calls himself Narayan. Of course, that's the impersonal type of sannyas, where the sannyasis address each other as Namo Narayan, Namo Narayan. So it is a fact. The Supreme Lord protects the living entity when he is within the womb of his mother. By the Lord's mercy, that living entity obtains intelligence and knowledge. Anantashesh, Brahma, Shiva, and the goddess of fortune always desired to obtain the service of that Supreme Lord, whose servants carry out the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material manifestation. Yet the shameless sannyasi claims to be that Supreme Lord. A sannyasi claims to be Narayan, even though he does not know who he is when he sleeps. The Vedas declare that Krishna is the father of the entire universe, and the obedient son will respect his father. So in other words, sannyasis begin to think they're God. At least impersonal sannyasis, impersonalist sannyasis. I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandchild. Now hear what Narayan said to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita about renouncing one's duty. One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he's obligated in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. So here Krishna explains who is actually a sannyasi. In other words, it's not a change of dress. It's a question of someone who does his duty, is unattached, and offers the fruits to Krishna. That's a real sannyasi. One who worships Krishna without any selfish desires is called a yogi and a sannyasi. The Vedas clearly state that if one does not worship Vishnu and depends on others for his food, he cannot make any advancement. One's only activities should be those that can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and education should be done that one becomes elevated to Krishna consciousness. Since Sri Hari is the super soul of all living entities who have accepted material bodies within this world, he is the supreme cause and controller of everything. Real religious principles, activities, and proper codes of conduct are those by which one develops love for the Supreme Lord. Real education, chanting mantras, and study of the scriptures are those by which one fixes his mind at the lotus feet of Krishna. Krishna is the life and father of everyone. Everything is useless for one who does not worship Krishna. If you say that the philosophy of Shankaracharya does not agree with this, then I will quote his words to prove that he desired the service of the Lord. O Lord, although the living entities in the Supreme Brahman are non-different, the living entities are subordinate to you. In other words, their existence is dependent on you. You, however, are never dependent on anyone. Although there is no difference between the ocean and its waves, the existence of the waves is dependent on the ocean. The ocean is never dependent on the waves. Interesting quote. Also, it's a Shinja Beta Beta Tawa philosophy. Although there is no difference between the Supreme Lord and this material world, he is present everywhere as the complete whole. Still I have come from you. You have never come from me. In other words, we come from Krishna. Krishna doesn't come from us. As people say, those waves of the ocean, they will never say the ocean of the waves. Therefore, you are the proprietor and father of the universe. You are the protector in this life and the next. Anyone who does not worship the person from whom he is born and by whom he is maintained is fit to be rejected. These are the statements and intentions of Shankaracharya. Why would one shave his head without understanding this? A sannyasi should constantly chant the name of Narayan with love and devotion. Those do not understand those those who do not understand Shankaracharya's intention and give up devotional service suffer even after shaving their heads. Therefore I ask you, why have you taken such a path? If you wish to deliver the world by distributing devotional service to Krishna, then what need is there to give up your shikha and brahmana thread? You may say that great personalities like Madhavendra Puri have also given up their shikas and brahman threads. Still, you are not yet ready to accept sannyas. All those great souls relished material enjoyment and took sannyas after 3/4 of their life had passed. Yes, but not in every case, because you had Sripad Madhvacharya. He took sannyas either at 9 or 11 years of age. But Madhavendra Puri later on in life. You've just entered the prime of your life, so how can you be qualified to take sannyas? Because Lord Caitanya took sannyas when he was 24 years old. And actually we see in our movement, many of the devotees who took sannyas when they were very, very young just didn't make it. It's actually rare for someone to make it when they've taken sannyas at a very early age. What is the use? Generally, it should be like when Prabhupada took sannyas. Prabhupada was, 55, 60 or something. What is the use of accepting sannyas when you've already developed such devotional sentiments? This devotional service is rarely attained by even the best of the yogis, so why have you made such a mistake? After hearing Sarvabhauma's glorification of devotional service, Lord Gaura Chandra became greatly pleased. The Lord said, "Listen, Sarvabhauma Mahashaya, do not consider me a sannyasi. I left home and shaved my head because I was disturbed by feelings of separation from Krishna. Forget that I am a sannyasi and bestow your mercy on me so that my mind becomes fixed on Krishna." When the Supreme Lord bewilders his own servants in this way, how will the servants understand him? Who has the power to know the Lord if he does not reveal himself? The Lord is greatly pleased with whatever his servant speaks, even if that servant lacks proper knowledge. The Lord always enjoys pastimes with his servants. He incarnates for the sake of his servants. As the devotee worships the lotus feet of Krishna, Krishna reciprocates with that servant in a similar fashion. The nature of the Supreme Lord is that he is affectionate to his devotees. Who has the power to change that nature? The Lord smiled as he looked at Sarvabhauma, yet Sarvabhauma could not understand the Lord's words, for he was bewildered by the Lord's illusory energy. Sarvabhauma said, "You are senior to me by ashram, so according to the scriptures you are worshipable, and I am to worship you. It is not proper that you offer prayers to me, for this will make me an offender." The Lord said, "Give up all your deception. I have taken full shelter of you." In this way the Lord performs pastimes with his servants. Who can understand the pastimes of Gaura Sundara? The Lord said, "I have one desire. I wish to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from your mouth. Only you are able to remove whatever doubts I have." Sarvabhauma said, "I know well that you are well versed in all fields of knowledge. Is there any meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam that you do not know? How then can I teach you? Still, it is the nature of pious persons to discuss devotional service among themselves. Tell me, what particular verse do you have some doubt about? I will try to explain it to the best of my ability." The Lord of Vaikuntha then smiled and recited one verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, famous verse, the Atmarama verse. So I will read the Sanskrit to this so you can understand it. Atmaramascha muniyo nigrantha api urkume kurvantiya haitakim bhaktim itambuta guna hari. All different varieties of Atmaramas, those who take pleasure in the Atma or spiritual self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotional service to the personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including liberated souls. Of course, what that means is that even if one has no material desires, is self-satisfied, then even that person is attracted to the qualities and names and forms of the Supreme Personality of God. So that proves that the personal relationship is superior to the impersonal relationship, obviously. Then, in the presence of Gaurachandra, the husband of Saraswati, and by his mercy, Sarvabhauma began to explain the verse. Sarvabhauma said, the true meaning of this verse is that devotional service to the lotus feet of Krishna is the original truth. Those who are internally and externally always completely liberated from material bondage render devotional service to Krishna. Such is the powerful influence of Krishna's qualities. Liberated souls sing the glories of Krishna's qualities and names, while those who disrespect them are vanquished. In this way, Sarvabhauma put forth various arguments as he explained the verse with full concentration. After explaining the verse in 13 different ways, he stopped and said, I am unable to speak further. Lord Gaurachandra smiled and said, whatever you explained is certainly true. Now hear my explanations and decide whether they are authorized. Sarvabhauma Mahashaya became struck with wonder as he thought, further explanations are beyond the ability of a human being. The Lord then explained the meaning in his own ways which no one at any time could conceive. Sarvabhauma was astonished to hear the Lord's explanations and thought, is he the Supreme Lord? After explaining the verse, the Lord roared loudly and manifested his six-armed form. The Lord said, O Sarvabhauma, what do you think? I am not qualified to take sannyas. You think I'm a mere sannyasi? I came here for your sake. You have spent many lifetimes trying to attain love for me. Therefore, I am revealing myself to you. I have incarnated to inaugurate the Sankirtan movement. Throughout innumerable universes, I alone am qualified. You are my purely devoted servant, birth after birth. Therefore, I have revealed myself to you. I will deliver the pious and annihilate the miscreants. Do not worry. Just offer prayers to me. That six-armed form of the Lord was most wonderful and as effulgent as millions of suns. Sarvabhauma lost consciousness on seeing that form. The six-armed Lord Gaurachandra then roared loudly in ecstasy. The Lord was greatly pleased with Sarvabhauma. He placed his lotus hand on Sarvabhauma's head and said, get up. Of course, six-armed. Okay, let me explain what that means. Six-armed means you have Krishna with two arms, and the two arms are holding the flute. And then you have Lord Ramchandra with two arms and the bow and arrow. And then you have Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu with his kamandalu and his danda. So you have six arms and all three personalities in one. So let's go. But not three heads. Oh, here's described a little bit differently. The Lord held conch-shell chakra, club, lotus, mallet, and plow in his six arms. But that's the way it's described elsewhere. Anyway. It's described elsewhere. It was the three different incarnations. Anyway. Whatever. Different descriptions in different shastras. By the touch of the Lord's lotus hand, the Brahmana regained consciousness, yet remained speechless and stunned in ecstasy. Lord Sri Gaurasundara, the ocean of mercy, then placed his feet on Sarvabhauma's chest. Okay. So now we will take questions. Stop sharing and allow you to unmute yourselves. And we can... Okay. Sarva City, you have a question.
Hare Krishna Gurudev,
Please accept
my respectful obeisances.
Jai, all those Prabhupada.
Gurudev, a few paragraphs earlier, you mentioned that the shloka where it said, Lord Vishnu says, if people depend on someone else for their food, then they are not worthy or something like that. But
Yeah.
like in the olden days, the Brahmins had to beg for alms. So is
Yes.
that, so I got a bit confused with that, Gurudev. So could you help? clarify it.
Yeah, well, they shouldn't be. First of all, you shouldn't be dependent on one particular person. That
Mm,
was the point.
mm,
You can be dependent. You can be dependent on people in general, but not
mm.
on one particular person because you lose your caste.
Ah, okay. Okay.
That was the point. Not that anyway. So not that one should be independent because we are always dependent on people. But if a Brahmin becomes, that's why it says a sannyasi should only beg, madhukari a little
Mm,
bit from each house.
mm, mm,
One chapati or something. That's what madhukari means. All right.
mm. Yes, Gurudev.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Good
Hare.
question. Okay. Next is a question in the chat window. Uh, did Prabhupada make it compulsory for keeping Sikh and Brahmin thread? Yes. Then what are the duties and responsibilities of devotees to pay respects to the Sikh and Brahmin thread? I don't understand that one. Anyway, it's a Vedic culture that you pay respects to a sannyasi, whether he has a Sikh or whether he doesn't have a Sikh. Prabhupada said if one doesn't pay respects to a sannyasi, then one has to fast at least for half a day. Here's a picture of the Sadbhuj, which is published from Srila Prabhupada's book, which is exactly what I said. Here's Lord Ramchandra's two arms. Everyone sees that? Lord Ramchandra's two arms, bow and arrow, Krishna holding the flute, and Lord Chaitanya with the kamandalu and the staff, the sannyas staff. Actually, shows it with a tree danda. That's what a tree danda looks like, not a naked danda. But so anyway, so that's the sadbhuj that's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and a little bit different story in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Uh, when there's a difference, then we accept the Chaitanya Charitamrita because that's more of a philosophical text written with a lot more consultation with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees. So you see the six arms there? Okay. So that's the six arm form. Okay, Gopal, you have a question?
Physics on my obeisance, Shila Gurudev. Earlier in the classes, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur mentions millions of Vyasadevs. And then also in this chapter and in several chapters, he talks about in the future, these pastimes will be more greatly elaborated by Srila Vyasadeva.
Yeah.
And then we see that the Chaitanya Charitamrita is written later than this book.
Yeah.
And as predicted, the pastimes are described more elaborately. So is Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Maharaj considered to be like a representative or an empowered
Well, he's
person?
empowered, but he's not considered to be Vyasadeva. Vrindavan Das Thakur is considered more of an incarnation of Vyasadeva.
Yeah, but
According to
when he mentions millions of Veda Vyasas,
that.
is he referring to perhaps representatives of Veda Vyas, such as possibly
Yeah, he
Krishnadas?
could. He could be. He could be. Anyway, Vyas means to divide. And actually, it's not in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that all the pastimes are more elaborate. Some of the early pastimes are more elaborate in the Chaitanya Bhagavat.
Yeah, but some of the ones that are being described here.
The later pastimes are more elaborate in the Chaitanya Charitamrita because uh, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami had association with Raghunath Das Goswami, and also the diary of different devotees. Different devotees. He had access to the diaries. He had access to their writings. He had much more first-hand material.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Rudy.
Okay. So, Tulsi, you have a question?
Yes, please. My vacancies. I was just
Okay.
wondering if the differences may be a little bit because the persons doing the writing, their point of view, like Murari Gupta, when he was writing down, he was in he's Hanuman, so he's in the mood, a different kind of mood, where some of them are cowherd boys or gopis. So how
Those are details. They wouldn't do that. Anyway, a devotee pointed out, Jai Radhika pointed out, that in Sarvabhauma's house in Jagannath Puri, there's actually a picture of the Sadbhuj as I described it. So, just that they may not have had that information. That sort of description has nothing to do with the bhava of a devotee. Okay, who else has a question? Oh my God. Nobody else has a question. Raise your hand if you have a question.
Gurudev,
Yeah.
when you read about Lord Chaitanya speaking with Lord Shiva, that uh, that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Shiva, you will be in charge of guarding
That
the.
wasn't that was not Lord Chaitanya speaking to Lord Shiva. That was Krishna speaking to Lord Shiva.
Okay, so when
Because
Krishna
that
said,
was the story of how Krishna burnt Kashi to ashes, and Lord Shiva was accosted by the Sudarshan disc, and then he surrendered to Krishna, and then he asked Krishna. Anyway, then he asked Krishna for a place near him or in his abode, and Krishna gave Bhuvaneshwar. So Lord Chaitanya, Krishna as Lord Chaitanya, was not the one, or at least in that pastime, he didn't give Bhuvaneshwar to Lord Shiva. It was given when Krishna appeared 5,000, who knows how, over 5,000 years ago. So that was the context of that story.
okay, is there a spiritual planet where Lord Chaitanya stays?
A spiritual what?
A planet like we have Golok Dham for Lord Krishna
Yes,
and Lord
yeah.
Shiva.
There's a planet. There's part of Goloka Vrindavan which is like Navadvip, where the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. It's actually a section or neighborhood in Goloka Vrindavan.
Okay, okay.
It's not a separate planet. It's actually part of the same planet, if you can call it a planet.
So when devotees die, they can go to that planet?
Yeah, devotees
Okay.
of Lord Chaitanya. It is the planet. It's Goloka Vrindavan. Devotees of Lord Chaitanya, exclusively of Lord Chaitanya, just stay with Lord Chaitanya. The devotees of Krishna, they stay with Krishna. And devotees of Lord Chaitanya and Krishna, they are able to be in both places simultaneously.
Okay. Thank
So,
you, Gurudev.
as far as the Jagannath temple in front of Bindu River, I don't know anything about that. Bindu River is the question. So, all right, now it's time to end. Thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada will see everybody tomorrow evening.